Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Walkthrough Game Day Show. I'm Schuyler, and joined with me, as always, former West Virginia running back Eugene Napoleon. And as we discussed on Saturday night, West Virginia falls to Texas Tech. Eugene, go ahead and say it.
48-10.
48-10. So we're not going to spend too much time on that game, but I do want to go and ask you this question because I don't really remember off the top of my head if you've ever been a part of a loss like that during your time in West Virginia. Obviously, no, you didn't in '88, or really any point in your playing career. When you get beat down as bad as West Virginia did last week, how can you even pick yourself up off the mat and go to bat next week?
Let me tell you something, which is interesting. The year I transferred into WVU, we played Miami at home.
Yeah.
And I had to sit out that year. And I mean, Miami was stacked from top to bottom. Freaking Michael Irvin. I mean, they was stacked. Lorenzo Highsmith, they had a great, great team. And I remember I think they must have hung 56 points on us or something like that. It was crazy in Morgantown. I'll never forget Coach Nealon's speech after the game. And it was something along the lines of, listen, we're at a certain point in our career, but this was a pivotal learning experience, and it's going to be a learning experience. We're going to watch the film. We're going to get better at every position. And we're going to come back and work just as hard as if we won the game by whatever points, right? What got me with him and the rest of that staff, he was so convinced that if you pay attention to the most minute details and iron those out, we have a chance to be a really good football team, despite giving up 56 or some odd points.
Yeah.
I couldn't play because I transferred in. I had to sit out that year. I will never forget his post-game speech and some of the major points he brought into that. The very next year, when I was eligible to play, we wound up going to a bowl game and wound up playing Oklahoma State in the Sun Bowl. And then, of course, the magical year after that, we went undefeated and played for a national championship. Here's my point. What he had to do, as well as every other coach in that program. And it started with the most minute points. Pay attention to detail. We're going to iron these things out, and we're going to be better for it. So that's pretty much what you have to do after a loss like we just suffered, at the hands of Texas Tech. It's not about licking your wounds as much as it's about, we know what we have to fix. Now it comes down to let's fix it and let's move forward. The problem is if you listen to all the outside noise and you don't fix it, you're going to continue to make the same mistakes over and over again. And now we do know the definition of insanity, don't we?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. When you do the same things over and over again, but you expect a different outcome, we cannot be complacent with that. We have to pay attention to these details and fix the things that they can fix and then move forward.
The question is, Gene, does this team have what it takes to fix what needs to be fixed before this season starts to spiral out of control?
I'm looking at certain key areas. Okay, we know the secondary, there's a lot there that needs to be worked out. Now, I don't know if that's a communication thing between what's happening with the calls that's coming in from the sideline compared to what's actually being done on the field, because sometimes you have you can have the perfect call and then have a blown, a missed assignment.
Yeah.
You can have a perfect call and then have a missed tackle. So these are things that I mean about the minute things and paying attention to detail. That stuff has to be cleaned up in practice, because I did see a lot of I'm seeing a lot of missed tackles throughout the season, but more so last week than I've seen in games prior to that. And I'm trying to figure out now, those are technical things that you can fix in practice. Now, if it's an issue of talent, if it's an issue of if that's a question, and this is something that people get upset about, but I'm a realist. If talent is the question, then that is based on your recruiting. That's based on doing a better job when you're looking in the transfer portal, getting the best possible option to upgrade whatever that position is. If it's a defensive line, O-line, running backs, quarterbacks, wide receivers, DBs, linebackers, kickers, punters, whatever, that comes down to the staff and the eyeballs when you in that transfer portal and doing your due diligence when you are recruiting and you're going into these high schools and you're getting the best possible prospect for said position. And that's not always easy. No. It's hit misses. Everybody has a hit and miss.
It definitely is. And I think it's kind of safe to say this year that West Virginia's got a lot of misses. I won't exactly say who. Obviously, we're not going to call people out. But I think we all know who that is. It's kind of easy to understand who those misses are, where those misses may be positionally. But before we get more in depth with the defense, you brought something up to me before we hopped on here to record, and I wanted to let you expand on it a little bit because it is still about the game. It is about the coaching staff. You weren't happy with what happened in the post game. Explain to the folks why that you were upset in post game with Neil Brown, and what is it about what he said that really kind of irked you?
Absolutely. When I listened, I had a chance to listen to the post game press conference, and I know Coach is upset and he's aggravated and all of that, but he was saying things to the effect that those are coaching points. What he was talking about had a lot to do with the players wasn't doing this and the players wasn't doing that, and we wasn't executing. So if you're not executing, why aren't you executing? That's a coach's fix. That's not a player's fix, honestly. If I have a player out there and he has 5 MAs, Mr. Simons, he's not going to be out there. and I'm the header, so then I'm going to look at, if it's an offensive player, I'm going to look at my OC and then the position coach, if I'm the head coach. Because we can't play at this level and have 5 MAs and expect to win a football game. So I'm not going to put that on the player if I'm the head coach. I'm going to wear that jacket. I'm going to wear that heat. I'm going to sit in that seat. So what bothered me a lot, not even a little bit, whenever a coach has a post-game press conference and they say how upset they are, it's incumbent upon you to wear that.
Yeah.
Because that's what you're being paid for. It's not incumbent for a 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old to wear that, because if that's the case, then those players, then you need to upgrade those positions. And once again, that comes down to coaching and recruiting. The players didn't recruit themselves. So if you want to say, I'm upset because we didn't do this, we didn't do that, we didn't tackle well, okay, then as a staff, the first thing should have been said is, you know what? I didn't really look at the film yet. Before I get on the players, I got to get on myself as a head coach. And I got to put it on myself, my coordinators, and the rest of the staff. We got to do a better job of coaching. He said, and I quote, they got their tails kicked. Listen, then that means the staff got their tails kicked. Because if the players were not prepared to play, and you have 5, 6, 7 MAs, whatever it may be, that is on the staff. That's incumbent upon the staff. I've always been that's a major thing for me. Any coach I've ever been around, that's how it started. They will let you know what? Let me tell you something. You graded out this week 90% before the game. You got up in the game, you have 5 MAs, you won't be playing that many snaps next week.
Exactly.
And there is no question as to why. I couldn't, the coach don't like me. Nothing to do with that. You have 5 MAs. Yeah. You got my daggone quarterback head taken off. So no. So for me, I'm old school, man. And I know fans might be, look, this isn't personal. These are observations based on actions. As simple as that. That bothered me quite a bit because I felt you got to take more accountability and be take responsibility for what you're putting out on the field and what's not happening under your watch. Because as a head coach, that's your responsibility.
And that's exactly what I talked about in the Mountaineers Now postgame show on Saturday because, and I'll read it here again. Neil Brown and West Virginia, they beat Virginia Tech. Great. Teams like 2-5, 2-6, whatever they are. Not much to be said about that. After that win, Neil Brown told the media, I think the story of our downturn was probably exaggerated. The very next week, they lose 38-20 at Texas. After beating Baylor, Neil Brown says, I think the demise is kind of getting ahead of itself. The very next week, they lose 48-10. Gene, just because you win one game doesn't mean the work's done. That doesn't mean that you can say you silenced the critics. The critics are still there. You beat a 2-5 Virginia Tech team in Towson. What?
Yeah.
We'll give you credit for Baylor. We'll give you credit. Absolutely. But when you don't string together consistency, you're going to have people critiquing you and critiquing your team. That's the biggest problem I have with Neil Brown is that, like you said, the accountability part. It's like he's wanting so bad for all this negativity and all this noise to go away from the program. The only way it's going to happen is if you win football games.
That's the bottom line. And I'm going to say this. It's not only just winning football games. It's how you lose football games.
Be competitive. Even if you do lose, don't lose 48-10.
You have to be competitive.
48-24. That's different.
Right. And you have to be competitive when you're looking at the teams that are on par with your team. And that's why I go back to Virginia Tech came into that game 3-3. We came into that game 3-3. So if you're 3-3, somewhere along the lines, there's some commonality there where you're almost evenly matched.
Yeah.
For the sake of argument, you're both 3-3. There is no way on God's green earth, I don't care if you played them on Jupiter, that you're telling me that Virginia Tech is 38, excuse me, I'm sorry, Texas Tech, I'm sorry. Texas Tech is 38 points better than West Virginia.
Yeah, I mean, there's
no way.
And again,
I'm sorry, no disrespect to Texas Tech and they're building their program. There is no way Texas Tech is 38 points better than West Virginia. I'm sorry.
This is a point also that I made on Saturday's show is that prior to Neil Brown arriving at West Virginia beat Texas Tech, I think 5 straight times.
Right.
They're 0-4 under Neil Brown against Texas Tech. And this is one of the teams that's considered to be one of the bottom feeders of the Big 12 every year, along with, Kansas and maybe somebody else. They're usually right there at the bottom. 8, 9, 10, somewhere in there is, I guarantee you, where you're going to find Texas Tech on a year in and year out basis. So that's a problem. The big problem is defensively, this team has just been a mess, and I don't understand what has happened. The secondary is clearly the issue, and I think when you look at how bad this defense is, this is just reality. The stats tell everything. The last 2 games, Eugene, I don't know the last time this has happened. They have allowed 590 and 594 yards of total offense. That's 592 yards per game of an average.
Right.
In 2 games, in those two games combined, 1,184 yards combined. They're 10th in the Big 12 in points per game allowed, 33.7. 7th in yards per game allowed, 405.9. And they're 8th in passing yards allowed at 275.7 yards per game. And maybe the biggest telling stat is that they're allowing teams to convert third downs 42.9% of the time.
Yeah. So first things first, if your secondary is struggling, what do you do to remedy that? Pressure up front. Right? Pressure up front.
Especially if you can't play man coverage.
Right, pressure up front, and scheme it to where if you can't go man across the board, you have to simplify what's going on in the back end to where they're not thinking as much, they're just reacting, which means they're playing ball, they're playing faster. Because from what I watch, we're either a step to two steps too slow getting to the ball, or we're a step to two steps with a receiver behind the receiver, where the receiver is gone. So that's telling me we're not in position a good 60% of the time. We're out of position to make a play. So that's a problem, to even make a play. That could be scheme. Again, that could be technique. Again, that could be, there has to be some miscommunication, because a lot of times it seems like there's a few blown coverages, which has been very consistent, when you got wide receivers wide open. And it's costly times of the game when that happens, situational football, that we're just not winning that battle. So again, for me, old school, it comes down to coaching. If that's a problem, somewhere along the lines, and again, this is not personal, I like Neil Brown. Let me say it again. I like Coach Brown. I think he's a hell of a man. I think he's a character individual. I think he's a leader of men. I think that this situation right now is getting to a point where the expectations that are not being met is pushing decisions that may have to be made, regardless of him being all the things I just said he is. He's a good man.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this is a show me league. This is a show me sport. This is a competitive sport. So it's not about the likability of someone that keeps them around. It's about the wins and losses, unfortunately.
Yeah, and for me, I don't think it's necessarily a scheme thing. Now I could be wrong, but we've seen this defense be very good under Jordan Leslie. I mean, they were first in the Big 12 the last 2 years, or at the very top, or near the very top. 2 years ago, the COVID year, they were, I believe, number two or number three in the country in total defense.
Right.
In the entire country. This isn't just Power Five, it's just the entire country. And they were top
Right.
five in just about every statistical category. To me, it's a lack of talent and it's a lack of depth. And the transfer portal has attributed to both of those things, because we have seen, as you and I have discussed off this recording, they're losing guys in the portal every year, and they're not replacing them with the same caliber guys. And that's no disrespect to the guys that they did bring in. It's just they're playing at a whole different level of ball, whether it be the FCS or Group of Five, and they're asking to come in here and play in the Power Five level, and it's a whole new world. So I think that's a problem. The other thing that I've noticed is the missed tackles are a big, big problem. Like, very big. It's one thing to miss a tackle. It's another thing when the missed tackle is because of bad angles and poor pursuit. And that's what I'm seeing constantly with this defense. Not very good angles, bad or poor pursuit. And when you don't have those two things, you're going to have missed tackles. And you're going
Right.
to have explosive plays time and time again. So until those two things happen, where you're getting better angles, better pursuit, I don't know that this can be fixed, at least with this group of players. So we'll see what happens with the defense. Let's move into our keys to the game for West Virginia TCU, and then we'll get into our pick'ems. Gene,
Mhm.
what are your three keys to the game for the West Virginia Mountaineers if they are to upset number 7? What's got to happen?
I'm gonna tell you right now, we have to be more consistent on offense. I mean, we're just not. We have to be more consistent on offense, and that also stems from the identity of what we're trying to build on. That consistency definitely helps and stems from that. Defensively, for me, again, the missed tackles and not having the pressure that's helping your secondary. Our secondary is not being helped at all, and it's unfortunate because they already have their own set of issues back there. We got to get more pressure on the quarterback. We really do. I think that will help that secondary. Special teams, I know Neil Brown mentioned this. They didn't do anything to change the trajectory of this past game. I always say we got to play big on special teams, at least 2 to 3 turnovers in this game. If you're going to upset a really good TCU team, you have to you have to take the ball away. You have to give our offense 2 to 3 extra possessions somewhere. I don't care if it's a forced fumble on defense that we get, a pick, or a big play on special teams, 1 or 2 of them. You have to figure out a way to give our offense steal another 2 or 3 possessions. If we don't do that, it's going to be real difficult to slow down a team that is coming in. And I mean, TCU is rolling. They're rolling in every phase of the game.
Very balanced offense.
They're very balanced across the board. That's one of my keys as well. We have to be balanced, but we have to be productive in being balanced. It serves you no purpose to run the ball for 300 yards, throw the ball for 100 yards, and you still lose the daggone football game. Exactly. There's something off with that matrix. So to me, consistency on offense, being balanced, pressure on defense to help the secondary, and we have to do something in the special teams game to help our offense and collectively our defense. Special teams have to come up with at least 2 to 3 stops. 2 to 3 big plays.
Yeah, for me, the first thing is getting more manageable third down situations. This is defense I'm talking about. Last week against Texas Tech, they would get to third down, and sometimes they would get the stop, but there were so many 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3s, 3rd and 4s, where Joey McGuire, how Texas Tech likes to operate. They're going to be aggressive, and they're going to go for it on 4th down if they don't get it. And they did. They were 6 of 7 on 4th down. 6 of 7. Gene, you're not going to win football games if you give up 6 4th down conversions. Right. And they went 9 of 20 on 3rd down. They started off, I think, 0 4, 0 5, and they started to pick it up a little bit. So to me, it's more about getting them to play behind the chains, getting yourselves in more 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 7s, 3rd and 10s, right. 3rd and longs. Like, you need to get in those situations so that way you're preventing the door from being, or just preventing them from potentially going for it on 4th down. And even if they do, if it's going to be 4th and 5, 4th and 6, it's not a yard or 2. It's getting a little bit more tougher situation. For number 2, for me, is work the clock. TCU loves to hang on to the football. And there's been a couple of games this year where they've had the ball for over 35 minutes, 37 minutes, 38 minutes. And for a team that really struggles on defense and really does not have much depth, that's not ideal at all. You've got to be able to convert. Really, this goes over to the offensive side, really, more than anything. Convert 3rd downs, stay on the field, and not let that defense stay out there for 35 to 37 minutes. Because if that happens, I'm going to tell you right now, it's not going to end well. And then the third thing for me, you can really say this for any game, but for this game in particular, when you're playing a top 10 team that's a high potent offense that is really well coached, it is so important to win the middle 8. If you don't know what the middle 8 is, that's the final 4 minutes of the first half, the first 4 minutes of the second half.
That's right.
You have to have a strong finish to the first half, and you have to come out guns ablaze in the second half, because that middle 8 can win you a lot of games, because the momentum swing can just be so huge in those portions of the game.
Yeah, well, it's either going to win you a lot of games or it's going to lose you a lot of games.
Right.
It's like boxing. When you hear that 10-second, bell before the round is over, you gotta flurry and win in those parts of boxing matches to really chime up your points there a little bit. You have to. So it's the same concept. No, I agree. Those are all good points.
All right, so now it is time for our DVN Pick'ems, and let's take a look at the standings here. As Eugene, I'm catching a little ground on you. I had a big week last week, 4-1. You went, 2-3. That's a measly 2 wins, but hey.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
So now I'm 25-15. You're 27-13. I'm 2 games back. I'm going 5-0 this week. I'm just go ahead and put that out there. So I'll be 30-15 by the time we do this next week.
Interesting.
So, let's roll on into it. So we've got, with our first game, at number 2 Ohio State at number 13 Penn State, 12 o'clock on Fox. I'm going with the Buckeyes here. And Gene, I'll tell you, I was really, really close to picking Penn State because I just have this weird feeling about this game. But, man, Ohio State's offense is so potent, so dynamic. I got to go with the Buckeyes. I think they find a way to win.
No, I'm definitely going with the Buckeyes. That offense is clicking, and when that offense clicks, you notice how well the defense plays. It's like they're competing against each other.
Yeah. Let's move on to the American here. Number 20 Cincinnati at Central Florida, 3:30 ESPN. Man, I'm so back and forth on this one too. I really like both programs. I'm going Central Florida here.
Okay,
Yeah.
well,
I'm
okay.
going to be upset. I don't care what the rankings are, what the spread is. Give me Central Florida outright.
Man, well, okay. I guess, as you said, you're going to catch me this way. I don't know, brother. Cincinnati. Give me the Bearcats, brother. Give me Cincinnati.
It seems like we're picking Oklahoma State every single week, but they just got a lot of really good matchups here, so we're going to stick with it. Number 9, Oklahoma State at number 22, Kansas State, 3:30 on Fox. They very closely lost that game last week to Texas. They could have easily lost that game. They forced 3 turnovers from Quinn Ewers, but really couldn't get separation. They ended up winning 41-34 over Texas. I think they win this one pretty handily. I'm going 42-27. I don't think Kansas State has the firepower to match them offensively, especially if Adrian Martinez can't play.
Right. No, Oklahoma State, listen, they're playing on a totally different level at this particular point of the season. And I think even when they make mistakes, they're able to come back from their mistakes and counter that with something else. Nah, Oklahoma State is playing really, really well. And I don't see them slowing down anytime soon.
Going to the SEC, number 19, Kentucky at number 3, Tennessee. That's weird to say. Tennessee is actually relevant this year and very much in the college football playoff picture. This one's tough because I really want to go Kentucky. At some point, I think Tennessee's going to have that slip-up game. This could be it. But I don't think it's going to be this week. I think Tennessee will have enough to win. I'm going with the Vols.
No, I'm the same. Yeah, Tennessee will have enough to win. And to be honest with you, I'm not even sure how close that game is going to be, especially if they keep on doing what they do offensively. No, I think Tennessee won't have as much of a problem as people think they're going to have with Kentucky.
And out to the game we're all here for. West Virginia and TCU. Number 7, Horned Frogs strolling into Morgantown. Can they ruin the homecoming weekend for the Mountaineers, or can West Virginia get back on track and get back to 500? Here's what Neil Brown had to say earlier this week about this week's matchup.
We're back to work. I refuse to accept that's who we are. That's not who we were against Baylor here. And I refuse to accept that's who we are as a football team. We got a great opportunity this week. We got the number 1 team in the Big 12 coming in, number 7 in the country. They're undefeated. Really impressive team. That they're 7th in the country. The fact that they're at the top of our league, if that doesn't get your juices flowing, you're probably in the wrong thing. You probably need to do something else. I mean, if you don't play well, you're going to get embarrassed by this group.
All right, Gene. Number 7, TCU strolling in. This has got to be a must-win situation right now because if you fall to 3 and 5, it's going to make it very tough to get to bowl eligibility. But I don't think they're going to be able to do it. I think it's going to be close. TCU has lost 5 straight against West Virginia. Mm-hmm. Mountaineers have won 5 of the last 6 against TCU. Or excuse me, they've won 4 straight and 5 of the last 6. I feel like this is a game West Virginia can win. They'll play not very close from start to finish. I think they'll have a chance. But at the end, it's going to come down to who can get that last stop. And for me, I can't put my faith into that West Virginia defense as we talked about earlier. So I'm going to go TCU in a close one, 45-41.
You even put the score out there, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm not going to put the score out there, but I'm going to say this. I'm going to bank and bet on my Mountaineers to win homecoming and get it done, right the ship, so to speak, and do what we need to do to, I'm not going to say silence the critics, because you're not going to silence the critics. Critics, that's what they do what they're supposed to do. They're critics.
Yeah.
So I think West Virginia puts it together. And matter of fact, since you threw the score out there, I'm gonna throw my score out there. Since you put your score out there, I'm going to say we score at least 35 points, and I think we win this 35-28.
There you have it. 35-28. They're going to get the upset, hand TCU the first loss of the season. We'll see if Eugene's right or if I'm right, and West Virginia falls to 3-5. So that's going to do it for the Walkthrough Game Day show. We will not have a Mountaineers Now post-game show following the game on Saturday. I've got a wedding, so we got to wait till the next day. We're going to do it on Sunday. I promise you we'll have our analysis on Sunday from the game. So until then, take care. Be sure to hit subscribe on YouTube, Mountaineers Now. Follow us on Twitter, Mountaineers Now. Myself, Callihan _ and Eugene at Napoleon _ Eugene. So until Saturday, we'll see you then.